A very good evening to you and welcome along to a We're Not Really Here special ahead of Manchester City's elite development squad match against Liverpool as they hunt down their first crown of the Premier League 2. The boys are flying high at the top and we're just a few wins away from getting that all-important trophy. This is a team, of course, that Pep Guardiola described himself as a generation of good players, so very excited to see them in action. A very happy Friday to you all. Thank you for joining us. So great to be with you for what is kind of like an academy special. And here to help me along, and I must say, actually, I'd fancy us on a four-a-side pitch against four of our young lads, Nedum, Onuoha, Max George and Joleon Lescott. What a lineup. And Max, people may or may not know, but you actually came through City's academy. Yeah. Where did it all go wrong?
Pretty quickly, actually. Yeah. I was at the academy for just over 2 years. And obviously, being a massive City fan, it was like a dream come true for me. But to be honest, Daniel Sturridge signed, and then that was
killed your career.
And then I never played again. Pretty much, yeah. There was one game actually, we were playing Liverpool. We were 2-1 down, and he limped off, came off limping, and I thought, right, here's my big chance. I'm going to go on here. And instead of that, the coaches asked me that, will you just throw a ball up to see if he can volley it with his bad foot? I was like, yeah, all right, yeah. Anyway, 10 minutes went by, the final whistle went, so they would have rather have had 10 men on the pitch than have put me on. So,
Max.
So I knew it was all over then. Yeah.
But I mean, obviously you said there as well, I mean, you're a City fan. That must be, I mean, I feel like that's any young City fan's dream is to play for City. How was that?
Yeah, well, I remember the day that I signed, they took me down to the training ground, they put the new training kit on me, like the next season's one, and I was just buzzing, like, you felt like a player signing for the club and wearing the kit and then going to the games at the weekend, and watching, taking your family, but having the tracksuit on and all that. It was such a cool feeling.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a shame that my talent wasn't quite where it
Danny
needed to be. Danny Sturridge, you ruined me.
But Nedum as well, for yourself, I mean, you kind of are a living, breathing blueprint of an academy product that then went on to have an illustrious career. I mean, how was it for you, your time growing up?
Yeah, it was. I'm similar to Max, being a City fan, to be able to don the colours of the team and to represent the team, week in, week out for years as well was absolutely incredible, because I think the reality of the situation is not everybody in an academy team will play for the first team, but you still feel like you're representing the club throughout all those years in the academy, and that matters so much. That meant everything to me. And to be playing alongside people who shared that same vision, people who felt pride in wearing the shirt as well, that was great. And I think I joined when I was 10, and it was just turning into an academy from a centre of excellence. And I'll be honest, we weren't great in those early years, but there was a turning when we got to like 13, 14, we got better. And by the time it was the under-17 season, in the last 2 years we maybe lost 3 games in total. And as you can see from pictures like this here, we had a lot of success. Like when I was looking for photos, there were lots of photos of us holding trophies abroad. Well, obviously not this one with Crofty's massive head, but we lost in the Youth Cup that year. But we were a good side. We were a really, really good side, and it was a side that was based around, we'll talk about that in a second, but it was a side that was based around people from Manchester. And he also had a bit of Welsh, bit of Irishman, whatever talent. But the people who represented the club all loved doing it. And to have been able to have been a part of that and then make the grade and make it to the first team and have that honour as well. I look back at that, and they're probably some of my favourite years of my life.
So incredible, Nedum. And Joleon, for yourself as well, I mean, people might not know, so for those watching, but you've got quite an integral role. You work a lot with the club, obviously, but with the young players as well. So tell us about your role and kind of how it works with the academy a bit.
Yeah, there's a few factors to the role. The title would be loan development coach, and that's kind of what it is. It's helping players that go on loan to forge a career, and understanding that it's not just about talent. There's a level of professionalism that you need to maintain, and understanding. And it's good. It's interesting that a lot of lads, well, pretty much all the lads go out on loan and assume they were ready, and then they go out on loan and realise they're not quite as ready as they thought. There's a lot of factors that come into it, a lot of obstacles. So it's just making the transition as smooth as possible. So within the time they're on loan, they pick up the habits they need to have a lustrous career.
And how good, we're going to get into this team in a little bit that we're going to talk about, but this EDS team at the moment, and there are going to be a few familiar names that we'll have seen in our Manchester City match day squads for our first 11, but just how good are some of these players now and this team in particular?
Yeah,
Joe?
there's a real opportunity for a lot of these players to come through at the same time, which is good. You often get 1-2 players, but to say potentially have 5 or 6 players to come through in various positions as well is unreal. And what's impressive about these, they're quite young, to be fair. It's an under-23s league, but I don't think there's many players that have 20 yet. So
wow.
It shows that obviously the development's been right for the 3 years before, prior to this stage. But now they're all going in the right direction, and they're realistic now. They know it's not just a case of not everyone's going to be Phil Foden. Not everyone's going to get the opportunity to just go and be in the first team, and that's going to be it. You're going to play for Man City forever. There's various pathways for every individual, and I think as players, as parents and as fans, they need to understand that. Even if we look at our current squad, no one's pathway was at the level they are now. Like Kevin De Bruyne, as good as he is, he didn't come through the academy at Chelsea or Man City and play for them teams. He came through at Genk, then went to Chelsea, then had to step down again and then came back. So the pathway is different for everyone.
Sorry, can I just jump on that?
Of course.
I think one thing as well, which is a big part of this whole conversation, is the fact that when you do join an academy, the obvious end goal is to play for the first team, be successful for the first team, and to have a feel like, say, Phil Foden does for the first team. But I think in terms of the academy here, in terms of how much it's changed, I think you look at the fact that you can come here, you can be educated off the field, can be educated on the field. And with people like Joleon in play, talking about the loans and so on, understanding that being good in your age group is one thing, but being good in men's football is another. And when you have those types of lessons, for me, I see this now as being, it's not a failure if you don't make it at Man City, because they're setting you up to be able to have the best career possible because of the work that's been put into you by them here and the work which you put in yourself.
Yes.
You know, what they put in, City are putting as well and matching it, and you will get something out of this. And I think if people have that type of mentality, then success is there. Because, as I say, to be friends with Joe, and obviously I'm biased, but this is a great person to tell you that what happens on this field here today doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have this career, but it's how you react when you enter the main stage and you're playing with people who, you know, they don't need to have a nap in the afternoon because they've got kids to look after. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
The game's different. But this academy setup here, based on what I'm seeing now, like it's the type of place which I dream of, I would have dreamt of coming through, because it looks so special.
And it's so interesting because I think a lot of young players, and even I think Rodri was given an interview this week saying the facilities here are something like you've never seen. I mean, Max, when you will have been playing, obviously it wouldn't have been this, but I mean...
No, not quite. Jolly Range car park.
But when you were kind of coming through, what was your experience and how was it at the time?
I mean, when I was there, it was like... I'd never seen anything like it, because I was used to playing just down the local park, and you know what I mean. So when I got there, and you have the kit, there was physios there. Like if you got like an actual physio room, you'd go in, which I probably spent too much time in there as well. So yeah, the facilities for me, like I thought were amazing. But I mean, you look at it now, and I love the way that there can't be a better backdrop than the Etihad behind the goal that you're shooting at, because do you know what I mean? You look at it and you just think that's where you could get.
Yeah.
Like Nedum said, it's not a failure if you don't make it at City. And I think I wanted to ask Joleon, actually, being so close to the loan side of things with young players, because when loving football and looking at young players, I always thought, why don't they go abroad like more and develop? Like, how much does it help, do you think, when they go abroad and play?
It helps now. I think there's less of a stigma to go abroad. Before, if you went abroad, like, you were forgotten about. The coverage wasn't there. You know what I mean? We got to think for the national team. Like, for years, we probably had Steve McManaman's probably the only player that we can remember growing up watching and thinking he plays for Real Madrid.
Yeah.
But no one else went away. No one else. All of our best players, or so-called best players, played in England. So I think it's different now. I think this generation are kind of, in a way, more kind of self-dependent and just realise they just want to play. And I'm willing to go anywhere to do it. And then they not kind of worry about the consequences, which is good. And it's a good innocence to have. But not everyone has that self-belief. You need family support. Like, you know what I mean? We've got players that are moving to cities, never mind countries, and struggle. You know what I mean? Like, at 17, would I have been able to do that? I don't know. And would it have benefited me? And so it's difficult. And like I said, there's no one way fits all. So it's just finding out. And there's so much research to do and backdrop and upbringing and stuff, and what kind of level of challenge, what kind of level of support they need to kind of build a resilience that makes you have a career.
Off that, because if you take Kevin De Bruyne as your example, and I think this is a question for all three of you to see what you think the factors are, because you see him now, and obviously he's one of the world's top 3 players, you would say. Obviously wasn't like that as a kid. But you'd think for someone who has that ability, that the academy route, he would have probably played at an academy and then gone straight into the first team and gone from there. But why does it never play out that way? Apart from the odd one that seems to be like Phil Foden, even if it's either the loan systems or you go to another club and come back, how come it's not as straightforward as it seems from the outside in, do you think?
To be honest, I think it depends on the club, depends on timing and things like that, because so I speak to a lot of players for the show that I do, and within that you hear the tales of how they started with good fortune. You know what I mean? There's some players who've had great ability who maybe started later, who maybe had to move somewhere than other people. And I'd probably include myself in this, where I was fortunate enough to start the time that I did because there were injuries, because there was this, and the opportunity came. But the opportunity isn't guaranteed. Like we look at, say, Man City in this instance, we've had Sergio Aguero up front for 10 years. So for strikers coming through the academy within that last 10 years, they're going to be measured against Sergio Aguero in that instance. But you go back the years past that, and we had players who, I'd say there was more player turnover. So, yes, we would invest in some strikers, but wouldn't necessarily stay for too long and stuff like this. So there was always going to be more of an opportunity. And I think that's something that benefited myself and a lot of academy players around my sort of time, because there was an emphasis on the academy, because you didn't have these sort of iconic players whose production levels are so phenomenal that, you have to clear that to get an opportunity. Yeah. So, Kevin De Bruyne is without question one of the best players in the world and so on. And his story is his story, but someone else's story might be different. Maybe someone with his ability level will play for a first team somewhere and then continue to be a legend, like a Phil Foden. Yeah. But football's just one of those games, you can't guarantee success purely based on talent alone, because there are other factors in there which, you can't essentially cater for sometimes.
Timing, I'm glad he said it straight away. That is like the biggest thing, the biggest factor. Like, let's take Phil Foden. Yeah. As good as he is, if David Silva is 10 years younger, does Phil Foden play for Man City? No. Arguably not. No. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there was arguably that his timing was perfect because of David was coming to the end. You know what I mean? So that is probably for me the biggest factor in all of it, in all the equations. And like Nedum said, you just got to make sure you're ready if that timing comes. It may not come, and it may not be at the club you want it to be at, but you just got to be ready for when it does come and be able to grab the opportunity, because there's so many players that we've seen perform. Yeah, but the timing was just off, you know what I mean? And then they end up elsewhere, and then again they find themselves. But some don't recover. Some believe that their chance was so called at a club. But even though, like Nedum's here, and I don't want to discredit the kind of generation that come through, because there was some quality players. But now Man City are signing the 5 best players in the world in their position. Yeah. So we're asking academy players to come through, never play a first team game, but you've got to be the best 5 in your position in the world. Yeah. How unrealistic is it? The expectations of them, of the coaches, of the whole situation. As good as these facilities are, it's not as realistic as we may think.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, sorry.
No. We're about this a great back and forth. Like, I love what you're saying there, because as well, then when you think about it, in my humble opinion, I think when there was a generation of talent coming through at City, there were 1 or 2 who were exceptional, but there were other people who were good, and the time was right, and we played, and we ended up having careers based on it. But I feel like I'm seeing more talented players in the academy now, and that's because their expectation levels are, like, they're being asked to be more, and even though they don't necessarily always match what that standard is, there's still scope for them. I feel like there's more potential, if you get what I'm saying. But then we all know ourselves, to be a footballer at the highest level, it's more than just talent alone.
So
which is what we've spoken about before.
Is what I believe now. I think, say, my generation, and Nedum's a little bit younger than me, but there was probably less talented players, and ones that were talented you could see. But everyone had a mentality of wanting to be the best, and they could be not the best player. They wanted to be the best they could be every day, which I think has changed now. I think there's a lot more talent, but do they want to be the best they can be every day? and I'm not sure that is a mindset installed in them from a young age. I think I can just be the best on a match day. No. To get into the match, you have to be the best in training in order to play, where I'm not sure every young player grasps that, in my opinion, anyway.
I mean, come on, Max.
I didn't have that. That's one of the things I didn't have. Honestly, it was I loved being there at the weekend, but I like doing other things. You know, I remember when I left City, I went to Oldham, and I spent a little bit of time out the game. I was at an age where all my mates and that were all going out and, you know, like hanging around with girls and all that. And I remember, so I did a bit of that. And then I got signed with Oldham. I remember sitting on the bench and I was chatting to the lads on the bench about like parties and girls. And literally, like, I felt like I was a dad telling his son, like, stories. Like, they were like, what? You did what? You know what I mean? Because they had that mindset of, it's just football. Like, whereas for me, I loved wearing the City shirt. I loved playing, but I probably loved watching it on the TV or being at Main Road and watching more than I did because of the physical aspects of it.
Which is, again, it's not a bad thing. Like, when people ask me about the sacrifices I made when I was young, and I always say, I never made any sacrifices. It wasn't even a choice. If someone said to me, you can go out with your friends, but it may affect you tomorrow, that wasn't even a thought. I didn't miss anything because I didn't want to do it. So when people talk about what sacrifices I made, I honestly didn't make any, because the decision was always based around, how am I going to be the best I can be tomorrow or the day after that? Whenever I needed to be called upon, I needed to be the best, and I could be. I'm not saying I was the best in every team, in any team, but it was just, I want to give it everything, and I enjoyed it that much. That's kind of one of the defining factors, because we've seen a lot of talented players that haven't made it. We know a lot of talented players that just haven't had the sustainability to make it.
Sorry to jump on this again.
Never apologise for jumping in, Nedum.
Would you say then, in terms of the academy, because I've only started to see this recently when speaking to people again, not everybody that's in an academy team has the lofty ambitions of trying to make it at the highest level. So I feel like there are some players as well who are there and they work hard and do their part, and they are needed because it is a 16-player type setup. But it's also a point for them to enjoy it. You know, for some kids or whatever, they might get scouted and they'll play for the team, and they take pride in that, and that's all they want to achieve. You know, and some of those people, we don't mention them, but I think it's probably good that we should never criticize them, because not everybody's ambitions are in the same place. You know, so for as much as you have somebody who is going to work 24/7 to try and get himself the opportunity to play for Man City's first team, there's somebody who just loves playing with his mates on a Saturday, and he has the privilege of doing that for a club like Man City and having that care. And, you know, there's so many different stories, so many different ways to play this game. And I think, as I say, those people, they're entitled to enjoy it just as much as somebody
100%,
else. You know what
and
I mean?
as long as they know that, and that's okay. There's no kind of, as I said, negative factor to that. But as I said, if you expect to be in the top 5 position in the world, there's an element of work and dedication that comes with that in any era, in any industry. It's not football. It's like you can't be the best at what you do and be half-hearted unless your talent supersedes everyone else's. And we found out there's only Messi and Ronaldo that allows that, and they are not the least working hard, but like Ronaldo works as hard as any other professional, but his talent matches that.
Yes,
I'll stop after this one statement. Okay? I'll stop after this one statement. Allegedly. So
just catching that nice sun there as well, aren't you?
It's a great view as
the
well.
look off.
So I realised what it was to be at the very top level, because the year when City won the league, and I think the year before, was when we had the most talented players, but also the hardest workers overall. And there were players who came before who did well for the club, but nobody outworked any of those people that were in the dressing room. We're talking about Joleon's time at City there. And then you look and you ask yourself the question then, why am I not working as hard as them when they've got more talent than me? So when I see that, it's inspiring. And I think for some of these young kids, they need to realise, for as much as Kevin De Bruyne plays some of the best passes you've ever seen, come Monday through Friday, leading up to the Saturday, he's working harder than you've probably ever seen as well. So if you want a chance to play next to him, you have to at least match it and hope that your talent puts you in a place whereby you don't look out of place when you're next to him.
Yeah.
And that for me, that's the biggest thing.
That really is flipping. And if there's any young players watching, that is the gold dust right there. If you've just joined us, thank you so much for joining us. We've got a We're Not Really Here special. I've been super excited about this. It's kind of an EDS Academy special at the heart of the city. You can hear the commentator. They are going to be taking on Liverpool in the Premier League 2 behind us in around 40 minutes time. And if you want to watch that game in full, you can, and it's very simple, and it's free. You just have to subscribe to City TV, City Plus. Go on there. You can just fill in your details. You will then get a 30-day free trial. You get access to all the content we have to offer. So that's the streaming of all the remaining Premier League 2 games. You've got documentaries like Made in Belgium, which focuses on Kevin De Bruyne, looking at our FA Youth Cup team win. So much brilliant content, and it's all for free. You just have to subscribe right now. So go on, while you're at it, open another tab. Subscribe, Bob's your uncle, and you can enjoy the game that's kicking off in 40 minutes time. We've got Nedum, Onuoha, Joleon Lescott, Max George, all here have obviously experienced the academy and kind of growing up in football. There was a point I wanted to ask you about, Max. You said you kind of had the move over to Oldham, and then of course then you went on to have a brilliant musical career with the Wanted. And I wondered though, was there a point that you had to kind of make that choice? Because we all know people, and I know a lot of actors and artists that all go, I could have played. I could have played back
this pop star.
Listen, I'll tell you, I had trials for Manchester City. That was as far as it went, but I still say I could have made it. But you genuinely, obviously, you signed a 2-year deal with City. Was there that point that you kind of had to make that choice? And if there was, how did you go about making it?
No, I genuinely didn't really have that choice.
That's disappointing. I was build up to that. I thought it was going to be like Simon Cowell.
Shall I say what I've always said?
I had Pep on the phone and I had Simon Cowell on the other.
I mean, obviously, to most people in the past, I've said that I was on the verge of a huge move, and but I wasn't. I think when I left City, my passion for it. Because I loved playing on a Sunday morning with my mates. Like, I grew up doing that. I loved it. And when I went to City, there wasn't as much feel of that. It was a lot more strict, and the lads that you played with were very focused on themselves, and they didn't care whether we won, if we won or lost or drew. It was like, did I have a good game? Whereas I'd be gutted if we lost. Like, I cared about the team and that, and I think that held me back a little bit. And then when I left City, I think my passion for it kind of waned a little bit, because I felt like, it would be a dream come true if I played for City, but playing football professionally for anybody else, and right now, after I've left City, I just didn't feel it as much anymore. And to be honest, the decision to go into music, kind of blagged it a little bit, because I didn't really know, that I was any good or anything like that, and it was one of them things when my dad asked me, well, what are you going to do? I didn't really have an answer, so I just kind of went, music. And then he said, right, well, there's auditions in London tomorrow, so you better get on the train.
No way.
And then I got on the train a couple of days later, and I didn't come back home for 9 years.
Wow.
And I was living in London on my own when I was 17, and that was it. And like you say, though, it's like with football, it's timing. Like, had I not have got on that train and gone to that audition, I wouldn't have met a guy that then 2 years later, after I'd done pubs and clubs for a couple of years on my own, was doing another audition and remembered me 2 years before.
Wow.
I was like, and the timing of the band of that sort that I was in, there hadn't been one for years, so it was timing. I'm not the best singer. I'm not the best singer in the world. Way off it. But I think once I got in it, I stuck with it and I worked hard and I enjoyed it at the same time. And I think the mix of enjoying it made me work even harder and for longer. So luck, timing, and
hard work.
A good voice as well.
Work, yeah. Also, that all-time low, that was got to be one of the best announcing singles of a band ever for me. It was flipping, it was unbelievable. I get a question for you now: is do you ever have a point, or were there ever points where you cast your mind back and go, "Oh, mate, could I have given it a go?" Do you know what I mean? Is there ever a part of you that always falls back on that? Yeah.
All the time. even about 3 years ago, I moved to Vegas for a couple of years and played a bit of semi-pro.
What have I? You sound like, I wish I could get mine.
I missed it too much, and there was a Vegas Vision they were called, and I thought semi-pro. This could be my way back in. I thought like decent standard abroad. It's good on your CV, innit? And I played like 4 games, and then I've not had them thoughts since. To be honest, my body,
Vegas will do that to you.
My body wasn't having it, mate.
It's hot out there. You can't play in Vegas.
Yeah,
I think we got some pictures as well of you, Max, at the when your time at the academy. I think we can bring up. Look at that.
Look at that.
The brother T-shirt
right,
as well.
So these pictures. Yeah, no. Let me explain. Right. No, look, I'm frowning here because we got told there was a celebrity guest, England international, that we'd all look up to. Right? I thought it was going to be David White. And it ended up being Gary Neville. Fuming. Absolutely fuming.
Yeah. Okay, we just had to clear that one up, because if that gets around socials, there'll be people asking questions. But it's interesting because, like you say, even the stuff that you had to apply to music is actually what you guys are saying as well, you have to apply to football. And do you think that do you think you can see now that's more present in younger people now at the academy than maybe when you were coming through the ranks with younger people?
Yeah, I think with as well with like the education side and everything, there's so much built in now. I don't know. I think the mindset will be slightly different because they'll feel like there's so much opportunity, including the football. I think to grow and to learn on and off the pitch. I think that side is so important and so relevant here.
Yeah.
I think the opportunities here for the lads coming through is incredible.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what we got tonight.
I know, yeah. Well, we're all building up, we should say. We're taking on Liverpool. This is the second time that City have faced them. You might recall we faced them earlier on in the season, a big 7-2 win, a couple of hat-tricks as well. And this is, of course, our EDS team looking to win that first Premier League 2 crown. They currently sit at the top of the table, and 3 points tonight would help them go a long way in securing that. We can bring you, actually, I'm just getting in my ear. Yeah, we've got team news for you now, so we can bring you the first 11 that are taken to the pitch behind us against Liverpool. Here it is. So we have Gomez starting. Sandler at the back. We have Doyle there in centre mid. We have Bernabe, of course, that young signing that we got from over in Barcelona. Romeo Lavia. Cole Palmer, Tommy Doyle, Liam Delap, Alexander Robertson, and Samuel Edozie. Big first 11 there to take on Liverpool subs as well. We'll have a little focus on that team in a second. Just a couple final questions for you when talking about the academy, because we're all, I think, aware as City fans that City have invested very heavily in the infrastructure of our academy and, of course, the wonderful facilities we have around us. But Joleon, just for anyone who might not know, just how good are City's facilities, and particularly when it comes to the academy? Because when I say that, I mean, all you have to do is read interviews of young players when, if we're signing them from over in Brazil, or maybe we're trying to make them to come from Barcelona. Everyone talks about how good these facilities are, but I never quite know what they mean.
It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous, and people say they're spoiled, but no. If you have the right mentality and mindset, there's no better place to be. You know what I mean? Because you will get maximum out of yourself. You'll reach your full potential. But again, for the players that possibly don't make it into our first team and then have to change to a smaller club, let's be respectful, and facilities are not the same, then the change can be too drastic. You know what I mean? The other way, and it can affect you in a negative way. Things you're expected. You have say physios and the recovery facilities. Not everyone has that, so your body may acclimatise to a certain way of training, and it may not be then when you're leaving the club, say, to go on trial and then facilities are not there, you're being judged on things that your body's feeling for the first time. So again, it's good and bad, but if you're telling me what I'd rather have, you know what I mean, I'd rather have the good, and it definitely would have helped me. It would have been a motivator for me to kind of strive to be the best, because the one side of the facilities academy, and then you strive to get to the other side, which is the first team, and for me, I believe that is okay. You know what I mean? There's still a level of success you need to obtain to get to them. They are obviously the elite players in the club, and as I said, players use that as motivation, and the ones that do obviously get there.
Yeah, and off that, I wanted to ask you this, Nedum, because you were saying you were kind of part of the transition from a school of excellence to an academy, and now this seems, now we're talking about an academy that's arguably one of the best in the world. What do you think's made that shift, and how has football kind of changed over the last 10 years for us to have arrived at this point? Because it has changed even from when you were playing to when I was watching it when we were younger. What do you think it is? Is it an influence from Europe? Or?
I think, to be honest, some things that happen in football have just been happening in the world regardless anyway. Like when you named that starting 11, which you did very well, by the way.
Thank you.
You're talking about players there who most people already know about. We've not really seen them that much play for the first team. So some of these youngsters and stuff, they're under a different level of scrutiny, because by the time you're 13, 14, 15, you could be getting spoken about. So that shows that there's a greater emphasis on academies. You're seeing players being bought from that sort of age. And the money that people are being bought for, when Joel and I were first playing, that type of money is getting you like a seasoned professional. But people believe that this player will be worthwhile, so they're not shy to invest that type of money into players and so on. But as I say, when I came at City, as I say, we weren't great. We weren't great in terms of an academy or anything like that, but they invested time, and you start to see the pathway. The talent starts to get better, the coaching was getting better, became more competitive. And by the time I was at early 2000s, when I was leaving the academy, we were as good as anybody in the country. And that's going against some teams who, had that history of being there. But City, they knew it mattered. They knew it mattered to get players into the first team, because at the time that was one of the main ways in which we found first team players. It wasn't necessarily having loads of money to spend every single year. So it became more competitive. They invested into it because they knew it was a significant pathway. And now they do know a significant pathway. And to piggyback on something Joleon said before, when we were talking about the facilities, the more I look at it, the more I understand that all this stuff here means you can raise your ceiling. But the fact is, it's down to the player to see if they can get there themselves.
Yeah.
When I came through the academy, we might have been on this AstroTurf pitch at this 8:30, maybe training too much, maybe not with the right balls, maybe not this, maybe not that. And you've got a million one reasons why maybe you weren't as good as you could have been. But in a space like this, you can be as good as you can be. And if you invest into that, then it's the best place to be. And I think the other side of the coin is the reality of this place is an exception. But for the people who understand that it's an exception, I think if they don't make it here, the transition isn't as hard.
Yeah.
And that ultimately is the thing. And I think for people, as I say, Joleon's my guy, so I'm happy people like that are in this space to make sure people always realise and appreciate where they are. Because this isn't a straight conveyor belt into the first team, but it can be a conveyor belt into playing professional football.
Yeah.
Based on having a position where by the time you're 18, 19, your ceiling is far higher than other people's, because you've had all the best facilities and best coaching to be able to do so.
Yeah, of course. And
just to jump on the back of that, like, we talk about the facilities and how good they are and how beneficial they can be. The lads that go on loan to clubs that don't have this, they enjoy that far more than the facilities here, because it's what you want to do and it's playing for a first team. So, like Nedum said, like, it can be raised, but it's down to the individuals to get the maximum out of themselves. Like, there's only so much coaching and development work we can do. You've got to want to turn up, and you've got to want to do it every day, and that's the thing. And there are a lot of distractions now, and obviously for this generation, and the ones that use it as motivation, great, because it benefits them. But there's a lot of distractions and motivations that you can see the end goal. Like, growing up, you never knew what car anyone drove, how much money they earned. It was just they play football on the TV once a week.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And that was it. Like, I remember, like, Joe Cole was like the biggest thing since sliced bread, but no one knew what he looked like. You just knew there was a kid at West Ham called Joe Cole, and he was unreal. And then the one game you got to see him in the FA Youth Cup, you were like, okay, now I get why he was talked about. You know what I mean? So they're the kind of things that some players are getting undeservedly, and it impacts them. Again, not everyone's able to handle them elements. So there's so many factors in becoming a professional footballer. It's hard to just sit here and just say, I'll do this, and do this, and that will happen, because it's not the case.
No, and it's interesting, because I think naively, as fans, we do that, and it's so interesting to get the insight that you can give. And on, when you talk about the road to the first team, which was very present, obviously, you said, by the time you were graduating, it felt that, Max, and I think for fans, there was always that question of, you've spent all this money, but you're just buying players. But Phil Foden definitely seemed to have been that one where we changed that rhetoric, I guess, for fans. Then I guess for the young players as well, it goes, there's the pathway that we've been looking for. Do you think, how important do you think that is for the young players?
Yeah, Phil's the benchmark, isn't he, now? Because he's proven that with these facilities and being in this team, you can go all the way. I know you made a point before about when we had David Silva, if he was 10 years younger, that the pathway would probably be more difficult, and I remember that as a fan as well, I really wanted to see Phil play when he was even younger, but obviously because we had David Silva in that position, we didn't see him very often. Now he's stepped in and he's stepped up, and he looks like a world-class footballer. So I think, these lads will be looking at him and thinking, can I be that? But I'm pretty sure, I don't know Phil personally, but I'm pretty sure that he is one of those that works and works and works.
If that's one thing I think sets him apart from most players I've ever met, like not just these academy players, I'm talking ever met. I don't think I've met someone like that needs to win.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one that win, I get. Like Wayne Rooney was like that. When I first met Wayne Rooney, I was like, wow, you care that much? I care. You're different. And that's like Phil. Like, he watched his training sessions. I did some work with England on the 21s, and he was watching his training sessions. They told me they had to stop allowing footballs in the coattails because he would just walk around with a football.
I've heard that.
And just want to dribble. There's nothing. He's going to be the best he can be.
Yeah.
Wherever that goes, he's going to be the best because he's mentally wants to be the best he can be. And as I said, if that means he's the best in the world at some stage, then great to him. But he would have earned every accolade he gets.
For the academy, Joleon, then, and you've seen it as well. The same question I put to George, but then he did feel like that was that kind of was validation for all the investment, for all the facilities, and go. There we go. We've done it now, and the proof is in the pudding. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, 100%. But there's so many players that this academy's created that may become a world-class player that haven't had that trajectory that Phil's had.
Yeah.
Like if you look at, say, again at the time there was Sean, but then we had like Dedrick Boyata. He plays in top league in Belgium. That Jason Denayer, Captain Leon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These are international players. Play for Belgium. You know what I mean? So. There's so many players that this academy's created and helped develop and have allowed to kind of propel and as I said, there's a return. That doesn't mean you just go into our first team. To develop careers, the art of and the goal for any academy, in my mind, is developing players to have careers. And if we can do that, then the more you can do that, the better.
I think so obviously Phil Foden, we call him the benchmark, and it's going to be tough for anybody to be doing better than he's doing. He's a very, very unique situation, but having been somebody who came through the academy and I was there as a young player as the change happened towards being more successful, the conversations change a little bit because you go, even as a fan myself, I get this, you go from being a person who likes to see people come through the academy playing to being somebody who likes to see people coming through the academy playing who are going to help you win titles. And that little change there in expectation of the people who come through, it means that few people will come through, but there's more chance the caliber of talent that comes through will be more like a Phil Foden.
Here's one for you. Like, again, and I love Phil, and he has the benchmark, but we talk about timing. Like Sean Wright Phillips went to Chelsea, who were Man City at that stage. So he come through the academy, and now he's that guy.
Yes.
So they've always produced. Micah Richards was the same. Like, Chelsea wanted Micah, and he and the club, the stage of the club at the time were. Chelsea was the benchmark.
Yeah.
So the club have produced them players. It's just now the timing, the club are the pinnacle.
Yeah.
And Phil Foden's there. You know what I mean? So it's not like Phil Foden's the first and the only one that we've ever produced that's been regarded as the best in his position at such a young age. No, we've had players like that. It's just the timing of every factor.
Of course, and I don't know the facts properly off the top of my head, but I do know that I think as far as academy that ends up developing first team players, maybe not necessarily for the team, but around the world of football, I think City have got one of the best turnovers for that, and your generation as well, Nedum. I mean, there was the graduates that came through you, with yourself and Mika and Stephen Ireland.
There was Bradley Wright
on a Sunday. That's not
even Kasper Schmeichel as well, because he was in my academy team. That's a Premier League winner.
Yeah,
there was a lot of talent coming
Kasper
through.
used to moan all the time.
Yeah, he was good for that. He was good for that. But then Kasper did to somebody what happened to you with Studge, because Kasper came in, I think, under 16 year, and as a keeper we had for the whole time. Casper came in. This keeper was like, he pushed to the side. Turns out that keeper's Wayne Hennessy, who's a Welsh international.
Wow.
No way.
So, you know, at the end of the day,
That didn't
like,
happen with me.
you know what I mean? You just had a bit more desire than you. That's the thing.
It's Salford international match. I mean, don't worry about it.
For us at that time, the opportunities were coming, you know, and the club was a far different club in that instance. There wasn't a lot of money, and you could see the academy talent that was coming in was key academy talent for the club because they were playing week in, week out. And although not everybody that came through was a Sean Wright Phillips in terms of being like creme de la creme from the jump, like you're looking at Mike, who's at the time the youngest like ever England international.
Goal scorer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Michael was doing all sorts. There was so many players, even Crofty with his fat head and whatever. There was so many players coming through. Steve Ryan was exceptional.
Oh.
Like, there was a season he was player of the year. And that was when I think we qualified for Europe. And like I say,
Ridiculous
it felt, looking back now, those times when, I think it must have been 2006, 7, 8, stuff like that. We were a really young team because we're talking about Micah, talking about me, talking about Daniel Sturridge, Stevie Ireland, and we were low 20s, you know what I mean? But it felt at the time like that was just normal for football.
Yeah.
But some of those things which you went through and did then, like, those were exceptional circumstances. And I don't think it's normal, really, to have that many players come through an academy and form a part of the first team.
Yeah.
So to be able to have had it then, like, really, really appreciate it because, as I say, football's in a different place now. And success, you need it yesterday. So for some teams and some places don't have the opportunity to be able to develop young talent anymore. But I was there at the right time, and it helped me develop to have a 16-year career.
Unbelievable. And, I mean, very exceptional circumstance, but it feels a bit Joleon.
He's humble there. He wasn't there at the right time. Like, as I said, you have to be ready for that time. When that time comes, you have to be ready. There's no point the time coming, they need a right back or centre half. You're not good enough. You're out the team. So as much as he's saying the timing was right, he was ready for that timing. Yeah,
and it's the whole thing of you're saying you have all the variables and factors that you've all brought up here that they've done. But it was interesting because when you were describing it there was a bit of me going, I feel like you could maybe, depending on the next couple of years, be talking about this team because I look at our first 11 and there's about 6 names now already I've seen that have been a part of Manchester City's matchday squad, not just in the Premier League, Champions League. Your Tommy Doyle's, your Liam Delap's, Cole Palmer. I know Romeo Lavia is highly thought of. You've got Bernabé in there as well, Claudio Gomez. This team are on course to hopefully win the Premier League too. What will that mean to them first and foremost,
huge.
Joleon?
It's a big thing. As I said, it's a young bunch of players. And again, it's a transition year for various reasons, new coach, restrictions on training methods and stuff. So, as I said, it can't be underestimated what they could achieve this year. But going back again to say, Phil, it's going to be unfortunate because when some of these players get in there, rightly or wrongly, they're going to be judged on Phil Foden.
Yes.
And they're not even the same position. You know what I mean? Like, I see Tommy in there and he's not a Phil Foden type of player. So, for us to be saying potentially comparing that and stuff like that, it's difficult and there's a lot of expectations on their own shoulders, but there's a lot of talent in this group. And as I said, if not all of them make it into our first team straight away and stay in there for their careers, but they have to go on loan a couple of times and come back, and then all of a sudden you're in there because Taylor Harwood-Bellis is performing exceptionally well at Blackburn, but like, you know what I mean, so he would be playing tonight. So as I said, there's loads of talent, but unfortunately for him, that we bought Diaz, that is 23 and 4 or 5 years older than him. So as I said, the timing of it all, but there's loads of talent that should have careers in this group.
If you want to see the talent that we're talking about as well, you can do. It's very, very simple. We, of course, have got City Plus, which is our streaming service. There's a whole load of City content on there. It's also the only way in which you can watch all the final Premier League 2 games, how you can watch our EDS team. All you have to do is subscribe to City Plus. It literally is as simple as that. You'll get a 30-day free trial, and that will give you full access to all the content on there. So that's the live matches, that's the documentaries like Made in Belgium, which is a focus on Kevin De Bruyne. We've also got a documentary there on about this team winning the FA Youth Cup final. Honestly, if you're City mad like I am, it's the only streaming service you need to be on. So just go and subscribe and you'll have that 30-day free trial and hope you'll enjoy it. Be with us for the rest of next season and beyond as well. Looking at some player focuses then, and we brought you the first 11 as well. Want to begin with a name. I think we're all kind of knowing what's happening with Sergio now as well, and we're having to think about new number 9s, Liam Delap. Max, there's a lot of talk around Liam Delap, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's I mean, his record this season. I think he's bagging goals every week.
Yeah.
I think he's got 20 in 19 games.
Of that ilk, a hat-trick in this previous fixture as well.
And yeah, he's definitely one to look out for, and it's exciting as a City fan, and it's always nice when it's someone from the academy, homegrown. And I've asked around actually about him, people at the club, and they say that he's got that killer instinct. That's the one thing about him, and he's got a bit of a rough side as well. Like don't mind putting an elbow in there and that now and again. Gets a little bit wound up. But you know what? I think he's a young lad, and I think you probably need that, don't you? Like you need that competitive streak that
100%.
Probably Rooney had.
He's going to need that when he goes into the men's environment. You know what I mean?
He'll be ready then.
Yeah. So as I said, when he goes in there, he's already got the kind of now. Since he helps, his dad was obviously a professional as well, so I'm sure he's given him advice on how to conduct himself. And as I said, he's someone that wants to be the best he can be.
Yeah.
And that is what you see when he plays.
There's another player I think that we've seen pop up a lot, and he's had some cheeky finishes and assists this season, Cole Palmer, who really is, I think, earmarked as well to make into the first 11. Joleon, what are we saying about Cole?
Yeah, again, a lot of talent, and he's probably the most similar to Phil, not in stature, obviously physique's a little bit different, but obviously goes past players so effortlessly, can create a moment of brilliance, and they're the standout moments you want to see your top players or higher up players perform at. And as I said, he's consistently done well this season, and still relatively young. It's just can he create an opportunity for himself to get into the first team?
Sit down. Shut up.
I'll be saying that's a cross with his right foot. You know what I mean?
You're not saying that's a cross.
I don't know. Probably not. You can't put anything past these players now. They're up to no good.
How much? Because I was reading then that he's been on the bench. He's come on for one, but he's been on the bench 3 times away in the Champions League. How much does that experience? Because if you're on that plane and you're travelling, you're with that team and you're in the stadium with that music and everything. Is it a massive boost for when you come back and you're in a youth team game?
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
The week before you were.
When I hear that music now and I retired, it's still like a little tingle. You know what I mean? So I would imagine so. But the kind of experience of preparing, travelling away from home, yes, is great. But the mentality that you see the other players that are performing, you see them switched on all the time, how focused they are, and he may realise he's not going to feature, but he's going to have to prepare himself. So that is the experience he's gaining. How different do I have to prepare mentally, physically, to be ready just in case I'm called upon? You know what I mean? So they're the kind of bits that you get, and it's not necessarily for the next week. It's when the time's right, all of a sudden, I remember what that felt like. I remember what I did there. This is how I need to act and conduct myself.
I know as well, I think Sean spoke about, I know yourself as well, that actually the influence of older players within a team are massive, particularly when you are coming through the moment these boys are coming through.
Yeah, 100%. I was very, very lucky because in terms of defensive setup, I was coming through with Richard Dunn and Sylvain Distin played alongside me. And again, this is annoying because I feel like I'm blowing smoke up his backside.
No.
But Richard Dunn and Sylvain Distin to me are just as important as Vincent Kompany and Joleon Lescott.
Agreed.
Those two for that era were just as important as those two for that era when City were becoming something greater. And to have had the chance to play alongside both partnerships, that's something special. Richard Dunn, Sylvain, they were basically trading off being player of the year, and they were exceptional. They were always there. And I spent the rest of my career trying to have the mentality which they had. They would do anything for the team. They were always available. Richard Dunn would play a game as long as his foot was still attached to his leg. Yeah. Anything else, his neck could be twisted sideways, made no difference. He's going out there and he's setting the standard. Both led incredibly by example, and they're both very welcoming because in that time as well, as a young player, it's around the era where there were some hostile old people, but those people, they never let it happen. Those two, and even different positions, someone like a Nicholas Anelka as well. They were so good to all the academy people, and I think we were able to thrive because overall we had a good dressing room of seniors who were trying to teach us what it was like to be a professional, whilst also affording us the time to make mistakes as youngsters.
Wow.
And as I say, in the end, that's why so many of us were able to come through at that point.
And you speak of, kind of having them lead the way. I think one player who is instrumental to this young team is the main man, Tommy Doyle, captaining our team tonight as they take on Liverpool in the Premier League 2. he just seems to kind of have a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
to me,
he does. Yeah, he does, and it's great to see him getting opportunities for the first team over the past couple of seasons. And to be honest, I found out about him probably 2-3 years ago because someone said, "There's this kid you need to watch out for. This kid needs to watch out for, Tommy Doyle." And from that point, he's backed up those words. You know, he plays well, whether he's playing for the EDS team, whether you're seeing him, getting the opportunity for the first team. And he's somebody who looks like he has that level of hard work, that level of desire, and looks like he loves being there and loves getting better. Every day, every time you see him on video, he's looking around at turns of Fernandinho, Phil Foden, or whatever, Kevin De Bruyne, and you can see that he's trying to learn from them. Mm-hmm. Because he knows that if he wants to get into that team, he has to try at least match what they do.
Yes.
And I think when you have that level of understanding, you don't think to yourself, I've made it, I'm great, I'm whatever, then you do get better. And he's somebody who year in, year out seems to be getting better and better. And at that point, what a great position to be in. And I'm looking forward to watching him today, to be honest.
So am I. Remember, you can do the same as well. City Plus is the place you can do that and watch us take on Liverpool in the Premier League too. Not forgetting as well, Tommy Doyle, I think his grandparents between them rocked up over 1,000 appearances for Manchester City. So literally Manchester City is in his DNA. That's one person you can say that about.
No pressure.
No, literally. But Max, you kind of alluded to it before, but it does do something, doesn't it, for the fans when, one, I think they're from Manchester, but then when they do support the team as well, it just, I don't know what it is, but it just gives it that little bit extra, doesn't it?
Yeah, and with Tommy there, like you say, the amount of appearances that have come just from his bloodline, it's such a good story. Do you know what I mean? And I like it when it's anyone like Rory Delap's son. It's cool when you wear a name that you've heard before and you're like, no way, it's boys here now. It's really nice to see. But yeah, as a City fan, there's no better feeling than when you see one of our own come through. There was a clip up there then when Micah scored. I think it was against Aston Villa away in I think it was the FA Cup.
When he was swearing.
Did the FA Cup game? Yeah, I was at that game, and my mum had dragged me out because it was the end, and we were 1-0 down, and I missed the goal.
Oh,
yeah, mate. So, but like moments like that. And then him swearing afterwards, it's just brilliant.
It really, really is.
Sorry, I tell you what, when you mentioned, he loves it, that fella. But I tell you what, that moment when you said, you look at Liam Delap and think of like Rory and so on. For me personally, that's when I knew I had to retire because I can't keep playing. Because I played against you, Dad. I can't play against you as well.
Yeah, that LeBron James.
Enough's enough. Yeah, enough's enough.
I think we've got time. I mean, we're gearing up to it kick off over here, but of course we'll know it was a big result when these two teams last met. 7-2 the score finished. A hat-trick from one of the players we've mentioned here in Delap. We can bring you some of the highlights from that game now. Check this out.
Couple worldy.
Yeah. Do you know, as we watch these goals go in, because there are some goals, but Joleon, am I right in saying now that there is a philosophy and style that is played by all the Manchester City teams that is kind of dictated and stimulated from the first team?
Oh yeah, but I want to do the academy a bit more credit than say it's just been implemented since, like, say, Pep came. There was coaches before. Simon Davis was instrumental in that aspect as well, so it's probably been enhanced more since the change. But yeah, it was transition, like obviously when Chicky and Ferran came, they kind of wanted to change that and knew to create generational talent, you need to have a philosophy from a young age that's in your DNA, so you understand what is required of you in your position. So yes, that is the case now, but it has been happening for a while.
One before.
It's not just Pep became the manager, now the academy's changed. The transition was happening.
Yes.
And then it's just been enhanced.
And fine-tuned almost to a degree. And I mean, obviously, the scoreline isn't as flattering for Liverpool, but these are also, they're not a bad side that they're playing against here, Joe, and they just seem to really turn it on for this game.
Oh, yeah. Again, like any level, you know what a big game is. The teams are still big teams, regardless of the players playing. Liverpool, Man City is a big fixture in any age group, so you turn it on, and that's what they did, and they scored some. I think this is the one. They scored some quality goals, and as I said, they do dominate the way the first team do. They dominate games, and it's so obviously Nedum hasn't seen as many games as I've watched, and I said you'd be fascinated to see how it just goes. The patterns are there, and you can see, and it just go, okay, let's just play through the lines and create the chances.
Well, I think the FA Youth Cup final against Chelsea, of course, which was a great game, but there were so many moments where you go, I feel like I've seen that pattern or that interchange happen when I watched City at the Etihad. And it's, I mean, how difficult is it to do that, and what is it that goes into making that happen?
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work and dedication to kind of implement that. It's, again, I don't want to disrespectful. It's similar to a curriculum, you know what I mean? So you're learning a style, and it's implemented all the time. So we're not going to change it tomorrow. The results don't determine how the coaching happens. It's okay, this is how you're coached to play that position, and it just kind of, you progressively get better and more understanding. And obviously it comes with repetition. Like people say, practice makes perfect. Practice, in my opinion, makes permanent. The more you do it, obviously, the more familiar you get with that movement and that sequence. So, as I said, these lads have been used to this. What they're going to be asked to do tonight, they would have been used to it for 6-7 years. You know what I mean? So it's not going to be new. And then hopefully the ones that do get to our first team straight away are used to that again, and it's just at a higher level. And if you're able to absorb the instructions, because that is the hard thing, like being able to do something and then make the right decision when the pressure's on is another skill set. You know what I mean? We all know players that perform in training, you know what I mean? But then when you get to a game, why is he making that decision? Because he's not able to analyse and process what the outcome is going to be if he makes the wrong decision.
For context, he wasn't calling me out there when he said, you know what I mean?
No.
I was like, yo,
I'm just going to give you
why are you trying to diss me on the air?
not that. Never.
If you want to get involved in this conversation, because I'm sure lots of you at home as well, like me, keep a keen eye on, of course, all the players in our academy. There was a couple of other players that I haven't had a chance to mention, but Claudio Gomez is another one that really excites me. I think we signed him from PSG, I think, a couple of seasons ago. I mean, we've mentioned him before as well, but we had Bernabe, who was a signing from Barcelona. Philippe Sandler, who actually was over at Anderlecht with, of course, our main man, Vincent Kompany. He feels like a player that is kind of...
I'm a big fan of Philippe's. So unlucky with injuries, and not just like soft tissue. Like he got injured in pre-season, and he was blocking a shot, and he literally broke his ankle. You know what I mean? So it's just so unfortunate that these things have happened to him, and this is one of his first games back, and this will be his toughest test tonight. But exceptional talent, exceptional, because obviously I worked closely with him, and then obviously Vinny knew him from here, and I spoke to Vinny when he was over there, and he said training with him was good, but now I've seen him do it in the games, he's way better than I thought he was.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And obviously that's from Vinny, so yeah, he's an exceptional talent.
Says a lot.
No pressure.
We'll bring you the team news as well, and a couple of other names as well. I mean, Ben Knight, I mean, he's a very hot prospect, signed him from Ipswich, if I'm not mistaken. Tell how much I can do my own work, Joleon. James McAtee as well, Felix Nemecha, Louis Molden, and CGA Egan Riley is on the bench. The first 11 looks like this for Manchester City. Kieran Slicker in net. Then we have Claudio Gomez, Philippe Sandler, Callum Doyle, Adrian Bernabe, Romeo Lavia, Cole Palmer, Tommy Doyle, Liam Delap, Alexander Robertson, and Samuel Adozie. The Liverpool team, I'll read you the names, some of them might be familiar. We have Jakob Orinsky in net, Connor Bradley, Owen Beck, Morgan Boys, Tony Gallagher, Tom Clayton, Tyler Morton, Leighton Clarkson, Joe Hardy, Jack Kane, and Ben Woodburn captains the Liverpool team. They have Louis Longstaff on the bench, Liam Hughes, Elijah Dixon-Bonner, Fiddle O'Rourke and Remy Savage. So all to come right now. We've got around 5 minutes till kick-off, so if you want to watch the game, and I think there's going to be a lot of hot talent on show now. That sun's gone, it's getting chilly. Get your Pep coat out, Joleon.
Yes, that might.
Joleon's going to be stood on the sideline like Pep Guardiola. But if you do want to watch it, it's very, very simple. You just have to subscribe to City Plus. So that is Manchester City's free streaming service. It's where we put all our content on. So if you want to get involved in that, very simple. Just go on the City website or City Plus, subscribe. You get a free 30-day trial, so you get access to all the content, and with that you'll actually get to see out the remainder of the Premier League 2 games. So even if you just want to watch the Academy boys for the last few games, go and subscribe and you can enjoy just that. If we're going to do a quick prediction from you all, how do you think you could? This is a tough one to go. It's I mean, I don't know if we take the last game into account, but what would you What would be a good result, do you think, for the boys tonight, Nedum?
Considering we're at the top, a win is going to be. Well, Joleon said it doesn't matter. The performance will be a good performance, but chances are they're probably going to win the game. But I will say today it's not going to be 7-2. That's my prediction.
I like that. What about you, Max?
8-2.
Yeah, I was going to say 7-1 maybe. I fancy Liam getting an hat-trick tonight.
Oh, love that. Okay.
I do, yeah.
Yeah,
Another
for the
one.
boys.
For
I like
the boys,
that.
yeah, for me.
What about you, Joleon? What are you thinking?
His job's on the line here, so he's thinking about it.
Yeah, I don't know. A couple of their names. I recognise a couple of their names. I was like, okay.
Ben Woodburn's been about for like...
Yeah, he's
I
played for Wales. You know what I mean? So, we've got a couple of names.
All to play for. Now, just before we bring you, of course, over to the action, remember City Plus is the place that from here you can go and watch the game, go and subscribe. We are just going to take a moment, of course, from all of us here at Manchester City and around the club. I want to express our utmost sincere condolences around the passing, of course, His Royal Highness, the Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, has sadly passed away, as we know. We're going to have a 2-minute silence here at the game, and I'm sure if you're watching as well, you'll follow suit. But from everyone at Manchester City and ourselves, we just want to express our most sincere condolences. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. We are going to be back at half-time and then at full-time talking about all the action that we see behind us. But of course, we are going to be beginning the game with that 2-minute silence for His Royal Highness, Prince Philip.